All right, this is video 3 for golden triads. Wasn't expecting it to be this long, but it needs to be this long so you can really understand this stuff, right? So at this point, I'm hoping that you already know that C, F, and G are your natural chords, and they just land on the keyboard, no problem, no funny business to make them major chords. That means D, E, and A are your sharp family, and they require that middle note to be sharp. So in this case, D, F sharp, A, E, G sharp, B, A, C sharp, E. Then we have one left over, which is B. So B, D sharp, F sharp. And it's the 2 sharp family. It's the only one that needs that. So last video we were talking about how to make C major a C minor chord, which would be drop the third, which flips the order from major third, minor third, to minor third, then major third. Or you can think it was skip 3, then skip 2. Now it's skip 2, then skip 3. Went over all this in the last video. So same with like F, drop your middle note, drop A to A flat. No, you have F, A flat, C, and that's a minor chord. Then we have some weird circumstances. Well, actually I should say this. So let's do A first. So we have like A, which normally needs a sharp, but then when we flat that sharp, we're back in a natural position there. So like I was saying in the last video, I think of sharps as like positive signs and flats as negative signs. So if you have a positive 1, -1, you get 0. If you have -1, -1, you get -2, which would be 2 flats. It's kind of a weird way of thinking about it. We could talk about it more. But then we have B, where, remember, we want to keep this 5th shell, but if we drop that middle note, we can get into B minor there, right? So the next step here is constructing augmented and diminished chords out of these things, okay? So we're saying a major chord, and we've covered this all in triad construction, but a major chord is going to be a major third, then a minor third, so 3 and 2. That's a major chord. Then a minor chord is going to flip it. You're going to get 2 and 3, so a minor third, then a major third. Then we have 2 other options. We have a diminished chord, diminished meaning to make smaller, which is only 2 and 2. So we're saying B, D, F ends up being a diminished chord because you're only skipping 2, then 2. When you hear it on its own, pretty sinister sound. Then we have augmented chords. To augment something means to make it bigger, and that's going to be 3 and 3. Okay? So I've already covered this in previous videos, but here's a little review for you. Take a screenshot if you need to, because it's going away. Okay. So let's talk about all the versions. I think in the past video I did C, so let's pick a different chord and talk about all the versions we can do with this. So let's start with E major, okay? So we're going to talk about all the flavors of E here. So if you know your golden triads, you already know that E major is G, oh my goodness, I can't talk. E, G sharp, B, there we go. Okay, so that's E major. I'm skipping 3 here between these 2 notes and 2 there. If I want E minor, I just get E, G, B because I got to flat this note. And then I get 2 and 3. All right, so I'll write those in just to kind of try to keep track of this. So the way I think of augmented is it's like a bigger version of a major chord, right? So it's going to maintain these 2 things, that first part, but then we're going to get bigger from there. All right, so E and G sharp remain. And that's still 3, but to get 3 up from here, well, I need to sharp this note, which is B, so I get B sharp. That could be a little confusing, because when you look at it on the keyboard, it looks like E, G sharp, C, right? And to a lot of people, it's like, well, why not just call it a C? And, you know, for all intents and purposes, you can, and harmonically, they are the same note, meaning that it's the same pitch, so your music might say it's one thing or another, but it ends up being this note, right? But if we're sticking to chord rules, which we are, it's not a C. There is never a C in an E chord. It's a B sharp. And we get E, G sharp, B sharp. So don't worry about that too much. Just know, like, them's the rules when it comes to chords and stuff. We can't just suddenly have a C in there. That doesn't work. It has to be B sharp. When you apply this to some of these other chords, that'll make sense as well. So then when I'm going the other way to diminished, I'm thinking, well, I need to maintain this relationship 2 here. But then I only want 2 until I get to this note, right? So if I'm thinking, well, E and G is a minor third, Well, if I already know E minor, I can just drop the top note, and then I get B flat. Okay? So E diminished is going to be E, G, B flat. So if this is confusing, let me talk about it in some other terms. I'll stay on E, but we'll try it on one more chord before we move on. So for E, I have E major, E, G sharp, B. If I want augmented, I need to move this top note up a half step. That's augmented. So E major, E augmented, E major, E augmented. 3 and 2, now 3 and 3. 3 and 2, now 3 and 3. Okay, if I want to make E major, E minor, I'm going to drop that middle note down. So I went from 3 and 2 to 2 and 3. 3 and 2 to 2 and 3. If I want it even smaller, I'm going to keep this group of 2 here. Then I'm going to crunch this in even more. And now I have 2 and 2. So that's E diminished. That's our smallest triad we can have. So it should sound a lot like your B. B diminished, that's all white keys. But this looks a little different, but you're gonna get the same sound, right? So let's do this on another chord, and we'll call it quits for turning any one of these. But for the 7 chords that you know, so you know, A through A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? This will work for all of them. It's just kind of predicated on you knowing what the original shape is in the first place. Let's do an easier one. Let's do F. Okay, so F, A, C is a major chord, right? Because we're skipping 3 notes in between these 2, then 2 notes there. If we want F minor, we need to drop our middle note by a half step or flat it. And that's going to change our order. Then again, think of an augmented chord as an extension of a major chord, and diminished chords as an extension of a minor chord, right? So for my augmented chord, I'm going to maintain this first relationship, F to A, because I want 3. Then to get another 3 here, I'm going to have to sharp this final note into C sharp. So this is F major. I'm going to move my 5th up just a half step, and I will get an augmented chord. Fun fact about augmented chords, by the way, if you continue this pattern here, so I'm skipping 3, I'm going to skip 3 again, 3 in between there, right? If I skip 3 again, I end up back on my root note. So if you just go 3, 3, 3, 3 again, you end up back on F. Okay, so we're not going to worry too much about that, but that's kind of a way of like double checking your work. Well, wait, if I do this again, I should end up on F, right? So let's go for F diminished. I'm going to maintain this relationship, this 2-step here. So F to A flat is diminished. Then I need A flat to C to be 2, right? But it's 3 right now, so I have to flat my C. So F, A flat, C. Now I'm going to have F, A flat, C flat to make 2. Okay, we run into the same problem as the last chord where it's like C flat. Wasn't that just B? And harmonically, yes, it's the same note on the keyboard. But in the terms of theory and how to map some of this stuff out, it's more helpful to think we took our original C and we flatted it. Now it's a C flat. And we get that diminished chord again. So again, should have the same quality of sound as that B diminished, which is a lot easier to find. Then fun fact with this one, if we keep that pattern going, let's skip 2 more. We end up on D, or really we should say E double flat. That's another conversation for another day. But then if we skip 2, again, we end up back on F. So this one spits you back out on the same root note that you had as well. So augmented and diminished chords have some really unique, interesting properties the more that we dive into this music stuff, but they're also less common to see. We use major and minor chords a lot more. Well, it depends on what we're talking about. Classical, major and minor a lot more. When you get into jazz, you might see a lot more of the augmented, diminished stuff. So hopefully this clears up these things a little bit. That's 2 out of the 7 options that we had. So, you know, in your free time, it would be wise to kind of maybe run this through every single chord and kind of make sure you understand this stuff. Okay, in video 4, what I'm going to do is talk about how to figure out black key chords from our golden triads. So we have chords that start on 5 different notes that we don't really know yet, but if we know our golden triads, we can deduce what those might be. Then we can run this whole process we did in this video to figure out their variations as well. All right, that's it for this one. I'll see you guys on video 4.